And good morning to you, everybody from all around the world. Good morning, good morning, good morning. And you have been here waiting for you. I must apologize to you seriously and vehemently. This is not my character. 10 minutes late. I am so sorry for that. I'm sorry. I had to quickly round up an engagement and I had to speed back here to my office just to come and talk to you guys. And I am excited that you are all here. It is great. And who was the first to come here? Deborah. Deborah, you are the first to come here. And I greet every one of you. I see all of you here. I've already eaten into your time and I don't want to eat into it more. So I will want to jump right into what we have today. So good morning, and good morning to all of you. Please confirm that you can hear and see me very well so that we're sure that the network is doing the right thing. Just tell me we can hear you, we can see you, and I will know that we are good. Today, we're talking about something very interesting. As usual, what your spouse is not telling you. What your spouse is not telling you. So, what is that thing that your spouse is not telling you? Okay, so I have confirmation that you can hear me. Great, great, great. So, we're diving right into it today because I am going to release you people by 12. I don't want to hold you people. I already delayed you people, so I don't want to hold you more. So, we are going to dive right in. All right, great. So, what your spouse is not telling you. Oh, by the way, I hope you've invited friends and family to come here and join so that everybody will also come and benefit because there is always something to benefit from our Friday lives. Now, a question. Do you know the mind of your husband? Do you know the mind of your wife? Can you confidently know what it is that they are thinking about most of the time, or what it is that they want to say most of the time? Has that husband or that wife given you access to the things that he or she is thinking of? This is a question that you all need to answer within yourself. Because you see, your spouse is supposed to be your best friend. And what best friends do is that they ensure that they are open to each other, they tell each other everything. Of course, I have always told you that loyalty is first to God, next to your spouse, next to your children, before anybody else. So your spouse is the first human being you should be loyal to. Your spouse is the first person, your first confidant, your best friend, your companion. And yes, that's the first purpose for creating Eve. Remember in Genesis, God said to the host of heaven, He said, "It is not good for man to be alone." Boom. It's not good for man to be alone. So that's why you have your husband, that's why you have your wife there for companionship. But many marriages have a lot of communication problems and they are not admitting to them. I have counseled so many marriages that on the outside, the first thing they tell you when you ask them, "How's your marriage?" Say, "Oh, everything is okay." And when you say everything is okay, I'm a little bit curious because I'm waiting to hear, "Oh, excellent. Oh, it's beautiful. Oh, my marriage is doing great." That's more that's more affirmative. And when you say, "Oh, my marriage is just okay," I know that there is a problem with the marriage. That my marriage is just okay. And of course, for some of you who have spoken to me before, you know that when you tell me your marriage is just okay, I probe further. I ask questions. People who have met me before, maybe for the first time, and we start discussing, that once we come to that marriage subject, I focus on you small. That's what I am. I'm a marriage counselor, so you don't blame me. It's just like how a doctor sees you and the first thing he's looking at is if your eyes are red, if your lips are looking white, just to be sure to say you are okay. That's his field. My field as a marriage counselor will make me always ask you questions about marriage. So there are many marriages that have communication problems and they won't admit that they have communication problems. You know, when you have a problem and you don't admit to it, it's worse. When you have a problem and you admit to it, it's at least it's a step in the right direction. That means somebody can even offer a solution to you, or you yourself can look for a solution. There are silent voices that are going on in marriages. Silent voices. You know what I call silent voices? Those things that your spouse wants to say to you that he or she is not saying to you, or has said to you maybe just once and you didn't pick it, so the person has just blanked out. Those are silent voices. What are the silent voices in your marriage? Those things that are not being voiced out. So let us first look at why your spouse is not speaking to you. Let's look at why your spouse is actually not speaking to you before we now go into what are those things that your spouse is not telling you. If you've not invited somebody, please invite. Send it far and invite. Tell them to come right now and join. Send the link everywhere. Tell them to come and join this most important thing, because as a counselor, sometimes, many times, when I'm speaking to one spouse, the kind of things they tell me, and they'll tell me they've never told their husband before, they've never told the wife before. And I'm wondering why. So why? Why is your spouse not speaking to you? Some of those things I can't, as a counselor, unfortunately, I can't divulge what it is that my client has said to me, even if it's your husband or your wife. I can't. That's the confidentiality. Except he or she says I can go ahead, maybe when we have a joint session. If not, it just remains with me. And I'm wondering, why can't this man, why can't this woman say these things to the spouse? So why is your spouse not speaking to you? Number one, and where is Dr. Happiness? Dr. Happiness is here. Okay, so Dr. Happiness usually helps me to number these things. And of course, the rest of you also do. I just picked on her. All right, so why is your spouse not speaking to you? Number one, trauma. Trauma. Now, a lot of people had a lot of traumas. In fact, almost all of us had one form of trauma or the other when we were growing up. And we didn't deal with it because we didn't even know it was trauma. But these things are affecting the way we behave today. These things are affecting the way we behave today. Trauma. So because something happened to you in the past, and it's difficult for you to now come out of that thing and actually speak to your spouse. Let's pick an example. Maybe in the past, you had a relationship, and in that relationship, you divulged all. You spoke everything that you wanted to say to that person. You said it, but the person now used those things against you, and that has formed a trauma for you. Now you are married. Now you're having difficulty in also divulging things to your spouse because somebody in the past had messed you up using the things that you had said to him or her. Do I have a witness in the house? Now that can be why your spouse is not speaking to you, because he or she has some trauma. Somebody messed him up or messed her up in the past, and that has stopped her or stopped him from talking. Remember, your spouse is supposed to be your best friend, and you tell your best friend everything. So when your spouse is not telling you everything, it is a challenge in marriage. And I'm not saying your spouse should be a chatterbox. No. But there's some very important things that, your spouse should be able to tell you. We'll be looking at some of those things. So trauma is a big issue. The second one is your response in the past. That's number two. The second reason why your spouse is not speaking to you, your response in the past. And when I say when your spouse is not speaking to you, I'm not saying in this context, it's not that your spouse is not talking at all to you. It's just that your spouse is talking to you, but there are some things your spouse is not just telling you. So the second reason is your response in the past. So maybe your spouse had told you something in the past and you didn't handle it well. You either shouted back at him or her, or you reacted in an erratic way. Maybe your spouse came to tell you something that he did wrong or that she did wrong, hoping that, well, this is my best friend, so even if it is you I did it to, or to somebody I did it to, at least I should be able to talk to one person. There should be one human being on earth that I can say these things to. And so your spouse decided to say it to you, and then you reacted in a way. Can you start thinking back? How have you reacted to your spouse when your spouse told you something that probably you are surprised, but your reaction was either by screaming at him or her, shouting back, exclaiming, keeping malice, or doing something, a response that was not what he or she was expecting? This particular one is a very core reason why many spouses have now shut their mouths and they're no longer telling you anything important. So they tell you all the peripheral things, just general things, but they don't tell you things that are important. I was speaking once some years ago to a couple. And initially, the man said that it was a counseling session. Initially, the man said, oh, well, he doesn't have anything to say. He doesn't think he's going to say anything. And I said, all right. So as we went on, the man now found reason to speak. This man spoke for the next 1 hour, and I'm not exaggerating. And I allowed him because I saw that there were so many things on his mind that he needed to let out. And that was a good avenue. For those of you who have come for counseling for me, I'll tell you there are always 3 things you should expect in a counseling session. One is that you have that avenue to speak and speak out a lot of things that you couldn't say to other people. For some people, that just gives them respite. You're just relaxed. So that's one. The second thing is that together we find out what the real issues are, because the things you think are the issues may not be the real issues. And thirdly, together we find out what the steps we should take forward are. Some of you have done counseling here, and you've heard from your spouses things that you have never heard before. At the counseling table, that's where you are hearing it. And you're wondering, what? One told his wife that, do you know I had a heart attack this year? And the wife was like, how can you have a heart attack and you didn't tell me? He said, yeah, it happened. And I didn't see reason to tell you, because the last time I told you something was wrong with me, your reaction didn't look like somebody who cared. So when this one happened to me, I just kept quiet, went to the hospital. They saw it was a mild heart attack, took care of it, and I continued my life. So what is your response? Bernard says, I am on this very table. What has been your response to your spouse? That response, that you don't respond anyhow. According to you, it's your wife, it's your husband. So you just respond anyhow. Number 3, poor knowledge on communication. Poor knowledge on communication. You see, there is what to communicate. There is when to communicate. There is how to communicate. These 3 things are, if you do not have them solid, you will always have issues in your marriage. These 3 things: what to communicate, when to communicate, and how to communicate. There is a what, when, how. There was a course we did, and it's available online. I encourage everybody who has not taken that course to go and take it. It's a video course, so you watch it. 2 parts. It's titled Improving Communication in Marriage. If you've not done that course, please go to our online store. Get the course. That will give you an idea. In fact, when you are done with that course, you will x-ray yourself and you will judge yourself how your communication has been. Because there are so many people whose communication is very poor. So because your communication is poor, your spouse is not talking to you, or your spouse's communication is poor. So because of that, he doesn't even know, she doesn't even know what to, I said what, when, how. So she doesn't know what to tell you and at what time and how to say it. So the person will just keep mute. So poor knowledge on communication is one reason why your spouse is not telling you the things he or she is supposed to tell you. Number 4, secretive past. So maybe in the past, your spouse has always been a secretive person. And if your spouse has always been a secretive person, then your spouse is going to continue being a secretive person. I've asked many people who come to me with challenges with their spouse, and I've asked them, I said, this challenge, did you see it before you got married? And do you know the truth? Once I ask that question and you start saying, well, you see, I already know that you saw it. But you got married. There are two things you could have done. You could have either opted out of the marriage, that's before the marriage, or you could have made sure that your spouse was able to improve, because all of us are work in progress. We are all work in progress. So we are all creating a better version of us. Or for some people, they are not creating at all. So the second thing you should have done that time before marriage was to look for how that your spouse, he or she, could start correcting that anomaly. And if the person cannot correct the anomaly, then it's safer for you to have just stepped back. So for some of you, your spouses have always been secretive, even before you got married. So small wonder that now they're not talking to you. That's why they're not talking to you. It's a part of them. They are secretive. And then maybe things have happened to them in the past. So it makes them not even talk, so that they don't start saying those things. Secretive past. The fifth reason we'll be looking at why your spouse is not speaking to you is a lack of emotional intelligence. This is related to number 2, your response in the past. So a lack of emotional intelligence is what would have constituted your response. And emotional intelligence is the ability to understand yourself, manage yourself, understand your spouse, in this case, manage your spouse, and understand the environment you live within. When you are not able to understand your spouse and you don't know when your spouse is feeling a pain, maybe somebody has passed on, and then your spouse comes to tell you, oh, this my uncle has passed on, and it tells you this your uncle has passed on, and then, or my uncle, sorry, your spouse tells you this my uncle has passed on, and you could not manage that information well. You didn't know that this is somebody that is close to him or her, and just brush it up like, he died. Yeah, okay, let's go to the market. And your spouse is wondering, come on, I just told you my uncle died. That's a lack of emotional intelligence from you. He's not going to tell you the next time somebody dies. He won't. She won't. So you need to get to a point where you start to build your emotional intelligence. Get to a point where you start to build your emotional intelligence. Vera says, so do we encourage this secrecy? No. None of these things are good. So you don't encourage the secrecy. But you can't force somebody out of secrecy. The person needs to have greater light. Secrecy is like a habit. Secrecy is like a habit. People will tell you, or the psychology will tell you, that to break a habit, the easiest way of breaking a habit is to introduce a better habit. Did you hear what I said? One of the easiest ways to break a habit is to introduce a better habit, because habits are formed. So the person needs to replace it with something else. That's why, in the Bible, can you remember that story in Matthew, where Jesus was saying that an evil spirit was driven out of a man? And when the evil spirit was driven out of the man, the evil spirit went around looking for who he could go into and found no place. And so he said, okay, let me try and go back to that place that I came out from. Let's see if that place has been occupied. And only for him to reach the man's place and realize that the man was empty. Nothing. So something was driven out, nothing was put back in. And so the man, the evil spirit decided to get 7 more dangerous, the Bible describes them as more terrible demons. And they occupied the man. And the state of the man was worse than the initial state. So to answer your question, no, you don't encourage secrecy, but you must learn what to do to replace secrecy with something else so that secrecy can gradually fade away. Secrecy can gradually fade away. Okay, somebody is complaining that my network is freezing. Please confirm to me if that is going on with everybody, and let's see if we can switch networks. We'll switch networks now to see if that will be better. So let's switch networks. So just a minute. All right, so we have switched network. I hope this is better. Please confirm to me that you can hear me and see me clearly, because these are important things that we're saying. We want everybody to hear. Like I said, invite everybody, all and sundry, friends, family, invite them. Co-workers, please invite them. All right, great. So these are 5 things that is causing, or that are causing your spouse not to tell you the things that they want to tell you. Now, let's look at some of those things they are not telling you. And some of these things will be funny. Some will make you jitter a little. Some will make you think. But these are just examples of some of the things that your spouse may not be telling you. Please don't take these things back and jack your spouse and say, hey, is it true that you're not telling me this? No. I'm just trying to paint a picture so that you know that there are things like this that are going through the minds of people. I just picked a few things from what people have told me, that this is what they want to say to their spouse, but they cannot say it. So I'm just speaking from years, from over 12 years of counseling. I'm just picking some of these things randomly. So it's not about you or your spouse per se, but just to let you know the kind of things that you hear. All right. Number 1, fear of tomorrow. The fear of tomorrow. There are lots of people who are afraid of what tomorrow has to say or has to bring, but they are not able to tell you. So they are living with that fear every day. Every day they wake up, they are afraid of what tomorrow will bring. Maybe at their place of work, maybe concerning the relationship between you and them, the fear of tomorrow. The next one that people might not be telling you, or your spouse might not be telling you, is disappointments, either from you or from outsiders. So that, there are things that you have done to your spouse and your spouse is disappointed in you, or things that you have not done and your spouse is disappointed in you, but your spouse is not telling you. Your spouse is not telling you. For instance, it might have been your spouse's birthday and you forgot. Men, are you here? We're the ones that are on this table very well. You forgot. Or anniversary, birthday you even used to remember. The one that hurts them even more is anniversary. Because every married person takes, especially the women, take their anniversary very seriously. Then you forgot. You have disappointed her or him, as the case may be. And maybe your spouse has not told you. And you are just carrying on and just feeling, oh, all is well. All is well. He or she is just smiling at you every day. But that thing is hurting her, hurting him. So disappointment is one thing that your spouse may not be telling you. It may also be disappointments from outside. Maybe your spouse needed something, there was a deal, and somebody disappointed him or her. And so your spouse is feeling down, but your spouse is not telling you. The next thing is number 3, things you do to him or her that he or she dislikes. The things you do that he or she dislikes. Have you ever asked your husband or your wife, what is it that I do that you don't like? On the counseling table, we get a lot of this. People coming to say, this thing, the way you do this thing, the way you do that, and then you see this spouse just looking and saying, I never knew you didn't like this. I never knew you didn't like that. Aha, that's why we're having this class today. Things you do that your spouse dislikes. That's something that is very, very important. You should have it. In the couples conclave, I'm sure all of you who are listening to me now, you know what the couples conclave is. If you do not know what the couples conclave is, where have you been? But just in case you are joining us for the first time here, that's okay. We'll tell you. The couples conclave is actually the annual program of the Marriage Seal Academy. It's the accountability program of the Marriage Seal Academy. So every year, we start in January, we end in November of every year. And we just hold our hands and do things together as a community. And we help each other to build ourselves up. So in the couples conclave, there's what we call the marriage dinner. At the marriage dinner, you are supposed to discuss things, mutual things, or things that are hurting you. It's at that marriage dinner that things like this should come out. What you have done that your spouse dislikes. What you have done that your spouse dislikes. All right. Number 4, your spouse is trying to tell you that you are overweight. Your spouse is trying to tell you that you are overweight. This one, some people may come for me now and say that's body shaming. That's why he's not telling you, because maybe he or she had mentioned it to you once, and then the way you just reacted, we talked about responses. Oh, you're body shaming me. Why are you talking? But you are overweight. Why are you fighting it? It's not even good for your health. In fact, it is for your own good first before your spouse's eyes. First for your own good. Because if you have a health challenge, your weight is a very important part of you recovering well or not recovering. So your spouse is trying to tell you that you are overweight, but your spouse is not saying it, because you have shut him or her up in the past. Yes. Your spouse is not telling you that your weight is unwanted. So check yourself. When we had that, we had a Friday live, right? Where we talked about body shaming and all of that. Go back to that Friday live. Or just go online and check what your BMI is supposed to be, your body mass index. So your body mass index is how much weight you are supposed to be according to your height and everything. So go and check. Check your height, check your age. It's online, you can calculate it. It tells you online what it's supposed to be. If it is above what the threshold, then you are overweight. Don't fight it. Just stop eating. Some of you eat and eat and eat and eat and eat into the night. 11 o'clock, you are still eating. Why won't you be overweight? You are overweight. Do you know that as adults, you really don't need as much food as you eat? A morsel of food, like my fist, is okay for you for a meal. But no, you remember all the suffering you suffered before. So bring it all. Akpu on one side. Then you have your dessert. After akpu, your dessert is a plate of jollof rice. Your spouse has tried to tell you that the way you eat is too much, but you have refused. So your spouse has shut up. Number 5, your spouse is not telling you that he or she wants to be alone sometimes. This one is a little bit delicate. Please listen to me. Vera says, what if you ask what does he dislike and your partner says nothing or something like it doesn't matter? That's because when that partner says that, it means you have a communication problem in the marriage. So first, sort out your communication problem. Go and take that course. And that's the reply to that. So if your spouse is refusing, we're going to go to what to do. But for just this question you asked, if your spouse is refusing, then it means your communication in the marriage is poor. All right, great. So let's go on to what I was just saying. So I said this delicate one, wanting to be alone sometimes. Your spouse is afraid to tell you that, because if he tells you or if she tells you, you may just look at it as in not wanting to be with you. They are two different things. There are some people who want to be alone to think. They need to be alone to just think, maybe for work or a project or what they are doing. But your spouse is even afraid to tell you that because of the way you replied last time. So your spouse is doing something. Maybe your spouse has brought work home. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not encouraging bringing work home, but we know sometimes it's inevitable. So your spouse has brought work home and just needs to concentrate for like 1 or 2 hours. And you come and say, hey, let's gist. And she tries to tell you, or he tries to tell you, okay, can I just finish? You flare up. I say, hey, that is it. You have focused on work. You have left me alone. So you don't want to. So the next time you come and say, let's gist, you will be gisting with one side and trying to do the work. He's not focusing on the two. I just use that as an example. So as delicate as that sounds, please, sometimes your spouse wants to be alone. If it is genuine, as in your spouse needs to be alone to pray. Sometimes your spouse even wants to pray, and to pray is a problem because you are all over him, all over her. Like I said, this is a delicate one, but it is one of the things your spouse is not telling you. Number 6, your spouse is, or you are paying attention to him paying attention to the kids instead of him or her. Paying attention to the kids instead of him or her. That's number 6. So your spouse is feeling that you are giving more time to your children than you are giving to him or her. But he or she doesn't know how to say it, so that you don't misinterpret it and say, oh, hate the children and love me. Your spouse is trying to tell you, but maybe your reaction is not allowing him. And it's genuine, and it's a good thing to want to be with your spouse. It's a good thing. But when you are paying attention to the kids and you're not paying attention to your spouse may not be able to tell you that if you don't have good communication. Number 7, your spouse is wishing that you will say I love you to him or her. So he's trying to tell you, won't you say I love you? Won't you tell me I love you? Your spouse is wishing that you will just say I love you. That's one of the things your spouse is not telling you. But your spouse may not want to tell you because it will be like he or she is forcing you to love. So your spouse may not be saying that to you, even though that is what is deep inside that he or she wants to tell you. Let's move on. What else might your spouse not be telling you? Your spouse is not telling you how he or she wants to be intimate. Yes, bedroom matters, shaking the bed, sex in marriage, in case all these other things I have said you don't understand. Your spouse wants you to make love to him or her in a particular way, but he or she is afraid to tell you. This one is very common. So every time missionary style. Yes, we had a whole course renewing the marriage bed. Those of you that were there, we even discussed the styles, right? So your spouse is trying to say, I need some more interesting, styles, positions, but does not know how to tell you. Does not know how to tell you. So your spouse does not know how to tell you, or is not telling you how he or she wants you to be intimate. Let's look at number 9. Number 9 is that he's not telling you, or she's not telling you, that your criticism makes him or her feel foolish. Some of you are super critics. Everything your spouse does, you must say something about it. Everything your spouse does, you must say something about it. So you are what we call super critics. Well done, sir. Well done, ma. Your spouse is trying to tell you that you are making him or her feel foolish when you criticize, especially when the criticism is not constructive. So your criticism is destructive. Your spouse has finished cooking something she has labored for 3 hours to cook. You just go, you taste the thing. You say, why does this thing have salt like this now? What kind of thing is this? What kind of nonsense cooking is this? And your spouse wants to tell you that you are making me feel foolish, my dear. But your spouse is not saying it. Yes, that's one of the things. So your criticism can make your spouse feel very, very, very bad. He will want to say it, but he can't say it. Dr. Happiness says the missionaries have gone to field. Don't come back. Dr. Happiness. So somebody is saying, Ronke says, what if your spouse feels that it is unholy to talk about it, sir? That's why you should come for that course. Do that course. Renewing the marriage bed. We helped to talk. That course is a course that every married person must do. It's on sex in marriage, being intimate in marriage. It's a 2-module course. It discusses everything, even this thing we are saying, talking about holiness. We discussed everything so that there are also limits when it comes to bedroom matters, so that you now don't just do everything. The world does everything. No, there are limits to it, but there are things that you can explore. So get your spouse, you and your spouse, get that course, sit down, watch it. Your spouse will understand what it is. All right. Number 10, let's move a little faster. Number 10, your spouse is not telling you that you are not allowing him or her to have a say. You are now not allowing him or her to have a say. That's number 10. Your spouse is trying to tell you. So everything, you are the one that takes all the decisions. As a wife or as a husband, you take your spouse cannot even try to mention something. You have shut the person down. And your spouse is trying to tell you, you are not allowing me to have a say. That's one of the things your spouse is saying or is trying to say. Number 11, your spouse is not talking to you about the cheating that you did. If you are here and you've cheated on your spouse, it is a good thing to first come for counseling. Then have your spouse also come for counseling so that you people can be told how to discuss the matter. Because sweeping it under the carpet, your spouse is pained that you are not talking about it. You are not telling him or her what caused it. You are not telling him or her how it happened. All your spouse knows is that you cheated. Your spouse is trying to tell you that we need to talk about this thing. Number 12, your spouse is trying to tell you, or what your spouse is not saying is that he or she feels that he is sacrificing more in the marriage than you. Sacrificing more in the marriage than you. You see, when one spouse is the one doing all the sacrifice, every time this spouse sacrificing time, sacrificing finances, sacrificing everything, and the other person is not sacrificing, it's a challenge. So when it's time to do something, you look at your spouse's job and say to your spouse, this one is not important. Me, I'm the man. My own is more important. So you sacrifice your job, even if you are going to get a query. Just leave the job and come. Let's go for this journey. Every time, it's always your spouse sacrificing, either him or her. It's a challenge. Your spouse is trying to tell you, but your spouse cannot. Number 13. Your spouse is trying to tell you that he or she is being financially disenfranchised in your home. So, both of you have agreed that you should put money together. And that's good. That's what I preach. But after putting money together, it's only one person taking all the decisions. And your spouse is trying to say, but this is our money together now. At least I should even have a say. Let me even be able to comment or suggest. And your spouse is trying to tell you, but you are not listening. So let me stop here. There are so many things that your spouse is trying to tell you that your spouse is not telling you, or that your spouse would have loved to tell you, but your spouse is not telling you. But we can't read them all. There are many of them, but let's just stop. At least I've given you 13. Let's stop here because of our time. What do you need to now do? What do you need to do to make your spouse start telling you those things? Number one, learn to listen. A lot of people do not know how to listen to their spouses. There's always something in your head, a voice in your head, making noise while your spouse is speaking. So you are hearing, but you're not listening. You're not paying attention. You're not trying to understand what your spouse is saying. When you do this, you shut your spouse up after a while and your spouse stops speaking. So learn to listen. Just sit down and listen to your spouse. Some of us, we are the ones that are always talking. Your spouse has a lot to say. Come and ask me. They come to me and they say so much. And when I ask them that, why are you not telling your wife this? Why are you not telling your husband this? The person will say, my wife doesn't listen. I've tried before. So I've stopped. Number two, stop feeling you know it all. Yes, it is very possible that you are smarter than your spouse, but your spouse also has a brain in his or her head. Please allow your spouse to even exercise that brain. Allow your spouse to exercise that brain. But when you feel you know it all, your spouse will just keep quiet. And that has driven a lot of married people into danger. So when you feel you know it all, your spouse will keep quiet for you and say, okay, no problem. Since you know it, I will leave you alone. What else do you need to do? Allow your spouse to have a say, which is closely related to, number two. Allow your spouse to have a say. Have conversations. Don't just come and make the decision in the home and say, everybody, this is what I've decided. Whoever does not like it, go to hell. No, don't do that. Allow your spouse to have a say. Number four, discuss your past. That your spouse doesn't know. That means your spouse has not become your best friend. Because if your spouse is your best friend, you will discuss all your past, and your spouse will discuss his past or her spouse past also. So discuss your past. Number five, improve your communication. See, you can't dodge this one. Did you hear what I said? You can't dodge this one. Improve your communication. Go and take that course. It's titled Improving Communication in Marriage. If you're not taking it before, go and take that course. Improving Communication in Marriage. Go and take it. It will help your marriage. Number six, improve your emotional intelligence. Yeah, improve your emotional intelligence. Because if you don't improve your emotional intelligence, your communication is going to be a challenge. It's part of that course. So improve your emotional intelligence. Number seven, ask your spouse to speak to you and have an open mind. Did you hear what I just said? Ask your spouse. Go back to your spouse today in the evening when the children have slept off, when it's just two of you, and tell your spouse that I have realized after attending this class, I realized that it may just be that I have shut you up and there might be things that you want to tell me. I beg you, can you just please tell me one or two of those things? I promise to be able to manage my emotions, but I need you to tell me so that I can also carry burdens with you or know the things that I have done wrong. Come to your spouse like this and gently. You will be shocked the things that will come out of your spouse. You may try it today and he or she may tell you, no, I'm not ready to discuss. Don't push it. Relax. Wait for tomorrow. Tomorrow, bring it up again. And keep bringing it up subtly and gently until your spouse starts opening up to you. Number 8, Stop forcing things down your spouse's throat. That's another way of shutting your spouse up. So you get new knowledge, then you force it. Hey, come, my husband, come. This thing, you must learn it. You must learn it. You are part of the things that is affecting our marriage. Calm down. Don't force things down your spouse's throat. When you do that, your spouse may just shut up and shut you out. Then number 9, this one is too important. Join an accountability system. Join a marriage accountability system. We have the couples conclave at the Marriage Seal Academy. It is an accountability system. It is for life. It's lifelong. It helps you so that it gives you that opportunity to continually have the continuous conversations with your spouse. Because at the couples conclave, we provide you knowledge and avenues to be able to make your marriage sweeter, stronger, and make it blossom. Look, as human beings, we don't like accountability. We don't like people telling us you've done wrong, you've done right, or people even making us feel bad or pricking our conscience. There are some people, once there's a place that they prick your conscience, you disappear, you run away, you click delete, or you exit group because you feel that these people are no, this thing is touching me. You are not helping yourself, sir, ma. You are not. Everybody needs an accountability system, and that's what we have created in the couples conclave. It's an 11-month program that holds you by the hand and leads you on the way all your life. That way, even when people in the couples conclave, I'm sure conclavites are here, they will tell you that even when they have issues in their marriage, they resolve it easily because they're in a community where we're always talking about marriage. But when you're in a place that they're not talking about a thing, you kind of gradually forget it. You know how slaves were taken from Africa to different parts of the world, Europe and the Western world. And some of them were almost forgetting their cultures. But a few of them quickly formed communities where they were teaching each other and teaching their children the culture and even sometimes the language. But many of them lost the language because there was nowhere for them to speak it. The white people, the Europeans, didn't allow them to speak it. So a lot of slaves lost their languages. Some of them had to come back after slave trade was abolished. So the generations that were alive then had to come back and start learning some of these things. But some of them who were wise quickly put themselves together and began to create a community to continually talk about their culture and traditions. And those ones kept. That's what we do in the couples conclave. We continually talk about marriage, the culture of marriage, the traditions of marriage, the way God has instituted marriage to be. And they have kept themselves. Oh, I can see conclavites saying we are here. Where are the conclavites? Yeah, Madam Ronke. Yes, you are here. So you need to have this accountability system. It will help the communication in your marriage. It will help soften the ground in your marriage. There are some things we even jokingly say in the couples conclave that just makes your husband or your wife come down to your level. So you must have an accountability system like the couples conclave to help you to make your spouse continually say the things that need to be said to you. This is where we're going to pause and we're going to stop today. And I believe that you have picked something. We have spoken about why your spouse is not speaking to you. We have spoken about some of the things that your spouse would wish to tell you that they're not telling you. We've spoken about the steps you need to take to ensure that your spouse continues to talk to you. I want to plead and beg you, please take the necessary steps. These steps that we have just shared to you. Listen to your spouse. Stop feeling you know it all. Allow your spouse to have a say. Discuss your past. Improve your communication. Improve your emotional intelligence also. Ask your spouse to speak to you and have an open mind. Stop forcing things down your spouse's throat and join an accountability system like the couples conclave. So join the couples conclave. The details are there on the screen. And if you want more details, there's a number that is scrolling. You can also chat, send a chat to that number. I give you all the details that we cannot give you right here on the couples conclave so that you know what it is that you need to do. All right, so this is where we're going to stop today, and I'm so happy that all of you could join. I see that so many people joined today. Thank you very much for joining. Thank you, thank you. And Tolu Lola says that you should like. So click the like button right there. Click it, and like it. So please quickly put your questions in the comment section so that we can begin to answer and we can wrap up. Okay, Choma says, can a married woman join the couples conclave without her spouse? Yes, you can join the couples conclave without your spouse, but we promise you that your spouse will come and join with you. That's it, we promise. And that has happened severally. So many people come and join alone. Then along the line with the teachings that you will learn, you will eventually come and join your spouse, or your spouse will eventually come and join you. All right. So any other question? Can I see any question here? I have value for my time. All right. Thank you, Deborah. Dr. Happiness says, thank you. I'm looking forward to seeing you next week. Yes, we're going to be in Benin next week. We are going to be in Benin. All right. Tolu says, thank you. I'm most grateful for this revelation. Okay. Chema says, okay, that would be great. Vera says, thank you, coach. Chema says, when does it start? Okay, the couples conclave always starts in January. Okay, but registration ends 24th of December. 24th of December. So details are scrolling on your screen. You can get more details. Just send a chat to the number scrolling on your screen. You get all the details that are coming up. All right, and very quickly, so this is what Dr. Happiness was talking about. We are coming to Benin City. We are going to be live in Benin City at the TIP Summit Benin. So if you are in Benin or its environs, please make sure that you come there. It's on the 19th of October, and it's going to be the Unusual Conference Center opposite the Emporium, JBS Estate. That's Sapele Road. All right, Benin City. So make sure you are there. If you are in Benin or its environs, I will be there with my wife, supporting my wife with all the other coaches, Tima, Ebuka, David, Chedoze will be there at the TIP Summit. So if you are a conclavite or if you are here and you listen to me, please just see me and take a selfie with me when we get to Benin. Also, we're going to be in the UK. Yes. So after Benin, we're going to the UK. So we'll be in the UK 26th of October 2024. We'll be in Birmingham in the UK. So if you are in the UK, we will see you there in the UK. Also, when you see me in the UK, please take a selfie with me and say, hey, coach, I'm always here in your Friday Live, or I'm in the couples conclave. Take a selfie with me, okay? I'll be so glad to have you. And finally, we have coming this November, Becoming Mr. and Mrs. Becoming Mr. and Mrs. is for eligible singles. If you had a rough time knowing how to get married, please don't let the junior ones have a rough time. We are teaching them what to do to choose the right person for them. So please invite them. The details are there on your screen. Invite them. If you want more details, we can also just send a chat also to the same number. They will give you all the details of this course. Please invite. It's just 5,000 naira. So it's not, we want all young people to come and prepare themselves to enter a glorious marriage. There are some of you here that can pay for 4 people, 5 people, even 10 people. Even this morning, somebody has reached out to me and said, oh, I just paid for 4 people. Another person, no, I'm about to pay for 5 people. So you know people, young people around you. Once the person is 18 and above, and maybe it's your child, you have a child 18 and above, please let them attend this, okay? It is very, very important that they attend this course. And finally, on the 20th of December, we're going to have the drama night here in Abuja. It's going to be live. We're going to be doing drama and music. So you want to be here. If you are here in Abuja on the 20th of December, then please ensure you start buying your tickets now. The same number will give you all the details. So just chat what it is you want on that number. They will give you all the details. If it's couples conclave, chat couples conclave. If it is Becoming Mr. and Mrs., just chat Mr. and Mrs. If it is marriage stories, chat marriage story. Whatever it is, they will give you all the details that you need. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for taking your time to be with us. It's been my pleasure talking to you. Remember to register for the couples conclave. It is too important. Every married person actually is supposed to be there. God bless you all. See you again next Friday. Bliss and